Summer is winding down, so we know you're looking for things to do with the kids. You still have time to see the new exhibit at the LBJ Presidential Library. Before Peter Benchley wrote the iconic movie Jaws, he was President Johnson's speechwriter. And his journey from White House to novelist to conservationist is on display now through October 19th. There, you'll learn all about the shared environmental legacy of the Johnsons and Benchley, the cultural tidal wave sparked by Jaws, and how the story that terrified moviegoers also reshaped our understanding of sharks. So head on over to lbjlibrary.org today to plan your visit.
Today on CityCast Austin, our city is reeling after what seems to have been a random shooting at a North Austin Target store parking lot. The incident on Monday left 3 people dead: a grandfather, his 4-year-old granddaughter, and a 24-year-old Target employee.
Thank you all for being here during what is a heartbreaking and deeply painful time for our city. On behalf of the Austin Police Department, I want to express my deepest condolences to the family of Hector Martinez Machuca, Adam Chow, and his 4-year-old granddaughter. Those were the lives we lost yesterday.
Police Chief Lisa Davis held a press conference on Tuesday afternoon in an effort to clear up some of the details of the chaotic crime spree that lasted for 50 minutes and stretched across Austin. But the most interesting information came in my sidebar with Chief Davis following the press conference. Today, we've got that exclusive interview, plus another conversation about why the shooter should never even have had access to a gun since he'd been convicted in the past of family violence. It's Wednesday, August 13th. I'm Eva Ruth Moravec, in for Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. So Monday's shooting took place at 2 p.m., but still 24 hours later, there were a lot of unanswered questions. So I went down to APD headquarters for a press conference.
What happened yesterday was an unprovoked and deliberate attack, a deliberate act of violence. Innocent lives were taken in broad daylight in a place where people should feel safe to run their everyday errands and to live their everyday lives.
Chief Lisa Davis told us reporters that the gunman first shot and killed Target employee Hector Leopoldo Martinez Machuca, who was collecting shopping carts. Then he shot and killed Adam Chow, who was in the driver's seat of an SUV. And then he fired into the backseat of the SUV, killing Chow's granddaughter. The gunman then pushed Chow's wife, who was getting her granddaughter out of the SUV, and sped off in their vehicle. The shooter, later identified as 32-year-old Ethan Neinecker, tried to carjack a water truck, and then he drove away in the Chow's vehicle before he crashed it. Neinecker then got into another vehicle and sped away. He tried to break into a Waymo, and he threw a brick through the window of an acquaintance's residence. Apparently, they knew each other from Bible study. It wasn't until 50 minutes after the shooting that police caught up with Neinecker in South Austin. According to APD, he ignored commands and was shot with a taser after being found naked holding a Bible. Neinecker was then arrested. At the press conference, Chief Davis went over Neinecker's previous history with APD, which included
assault causing bodily injury to a family member, driving while intoxicated, possession of marijuana, violation of a protective order, and 2 mental health reports.
His court record included charges from Williamson and Travis counties.
But this man had some serious issues, and I think about the systems that failed. In a way, as we move forward, we're looking at this background, and again, this is going to be things that are going to be coming up in the months and the years ahead. There were some serious failures here.
But it wasn't until my one-on-one with Chief Davis directly that I really understood the play-by-play of what happened on Monday, the danger and risk that was involved in this cross-city situation, and why it took 50 minutes to apprehend this man. Here's our conversation. Chief, I just wanted to ask, this is a Target, school shopping is happening. How concerned were y'all about, the people, and how crowded was this parking lot? What was the risk to public here at this Target?
I am so thankful for the fantastic work that APD did. And you think about the potential for what could have happened. To have him leave the scene there, wreck a car, get out, go somewhere else, and just having air support and all of those different things. It was absolutely terrifying. Driving there, I originally, you're going through the scenarios, what it could be. I was thinking, is this a domestic related type incident? What could this be? And then you get there and you think of all the possibilities. We've seen that here in Austin, I think a few years ago, the serial killer that came here. And so really it was about the number one thing was getting him and capturing him to stop anything. And so as you're moving forward with this, that is the thing that's the most on my mind is getting him in custody.
And that continued after he left. I mean, there was some time where y'all didn't know where he was necessarily.
That's right. I think as things started unfolding, everything was coming in, whether it was calls for service, the way he was driving on the highway, all of those things started coming in. And so the work of some really good dispatchers in our communications center, and then the sergeants who were putting in people on the street that were putting these things together, that this is probably our person, and then going to that scene and going to him and ultimately catching him. I mean, that was it. And then the time frame, you look at that, it was a fantastic job on their part.
Was it like 30? Do you know what the time frame was? And Chief Davis here got a little help from a staff member whose voice you will also hear.
I mean, it was 4 minutes for us to get there. And then by the time it's leaving and then capturing all of that, trying to catch all. So you imagine, and we talk about the LPRs and we talk about these things, but being able to capture where someone's leaving and being able to track them would be, it's a big deal.
It was about 50 minutes.
5-0?
Yes, 5-0.
From the start to finish?
Across
That's fantastic.
At least 4 sectors.
Okay.
So officers in different parts of the city and then multiple teams.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. And that was so impressive, is to see not only just the work that APD did, but the coordination with fire and EMS and getting there and seeing them ready to go and in their gear. And it was just a really impressive sight for me, but just incredibly proud of the work that APD did.
So for some context on how this incident could have been prevented, we reached out to the Texas Council on Family Violence. I'll be back with my phone call with them right after the break.
Hey y'all, it's Nikki. Not many of you know this about me, but The Wizard of Oz is one of my all-time favorite movies. I've seen it an embarrassing amount of times. And y'all already know how much I love Austin. So imagine my surprise when I saw that Zach Theater is putting the two together for an Austin twist on this iconic classic based on the book by L. Frank Baum. So get tickets now to see The Wizard of Oz like never before at Zach Theater. This show features a Dust Bowl era cowboy band, a glittering mirror ball experience, and lots of surprises along the yellow brick road. Y'all, it is the perfect play for families, longtime fans like me, and newcomers that reminds us that there's truly no place like home. It's on stage from August 13th to September 21st. So meet me somewhere over the rainbow. Go to zachtheater.org for your tickets today. That's zachtheater.org. Step into the conversation shaping Texas's future at the Texas Tribune Festival. The Texas Tribune is bringing together inspiring thinkers, leaders, and innovators to discuss the issues that matter to you. Dive into unforgettable conversations spanning education, the economy, healthcare, energy, technology, public safety, culture, the arts, and more. TribFest gives you an up-close look at how big ideas take shape and how they affect your life. You'll connect with fellow Texans, engage directly with experts and leaders, and leave inspired to turn your boldest ideas into reality. And y'all, this isn't just another political event. It's a catalyst for shaping the future of Texas today. So mark your calendar, November 13th through 15th in downtown Austin. Get info and tickets at tribfest.org. Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. It's a place where multiple generations can get together under one roof to share slow beachfront mornings and cool Gulf breeze evenings. An island escape with 18 miles of shoreline to cast your line, kayak with the kids, or simply cruise the coast in a golf cart. One visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit to Austin's beach.
So, to learn a little bit more about the context of this incident, we reached out to Tabitha Harrison, who is the Coordinated Response and Safety Strategies Manager for Texas Council on Family Violence, for a quick phone call. So, Tabitha, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, my pleasure.
So often, when there are shootings like this, people are searching for an answer, a motive, an explanation. And frequently, mental illness comes up as a defining factor. In this case, that's certainly the thing that police pointed to pretty quickly. And we've also been directed towards his family violence criminal record. So according to what we know at this point, Tuesday afternoon, the suspected shooter, Ethan Ninecker, did have a bit of a criminal record when it comes to domestic violence. There was an assault that he was convicted of in 2016 that involved a girlfriend. And then there was another incident a couple years later involving punching a roommate. What can you tell us about, somebody who gets in trouble with domestic violence and how they're interacting with the system, like what they have access to maybe after these kinds of incidents happen, if that makes sense?
Well, what I can speak to in specificity that's particularly important to this case is that the conviction of domestic violence carries with it prohibitions at both a state and federal level. And the perpetrator is admonished that they are not to possess firearms or ammunition following that conviction. Unfortunately, in this case, and it's so frequently the case with these homicides, there was some sort of gap in the system of creating and implementing a robust, effective strategy to ensure those laws are enforced that made this very preventable homicide unfortunately occur anyway.
Okay. And this being several years out of his conviction, would those bans still be in place? I mean, is that a lifetime ban?
Yes. Right now, the state of the law and how it's been for decades now is that a conviction of family violence carries with it a lifetime prohibition on possessing firearms or ammunition.
Okay. Got it. And then the APD, Austin Police, told us just Tuesday afternoon that in this case, the suspected shooter got a gun from his family. He has this ban, but how does that play out in a family environment and access to firearms in that kind of situation?
It's been my experience in having worked with domestic violence survivors and having worked in law enforcement that there are one of only a few ways that a prohibited possessor comes to be in possession of a firearm. And unfortunately, the one that can be least controlled for is a perpetrator who obtains a weapon from a friend or a family member.
And why is that? I mean, how does that happen? How hard is it for family to kind of keep that from happening, I guess?
I think it's important, though I can't speak to specific family dynamics, I think it's important that family members of those convicted understand the reason that they are no longer allowed to have a firearm. The systems we have in place to promote and ensure public safety have said, and this has been reaffirmed fairly recently by the Supreme Court in the Rahimi ruling, has said that a person who is apt or a person who is convicted of abusing their family member, their intimate partner in this case, is a danger to public safety. And failure to put those two pieces together is where we often find that friends, family members, people close to the perpetrators are failing to take things as seriously as they might otherwise.
Are they also like at risk of being potentially manipulated, also not knowing any of the dynamics of this family or this situation? I mean, is that something that's common?
I mean, I think that whenever we're looking at domestic violence, there's always an undercurrent of coercive control. If we're seeing a situation wherein a person is controlling and using coercion to get what they want out of a romantic partner, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that they would do the same with a family member.
Mm-hmm. And the police also have focused on this idea of the systems have failed everyone in this case. Be it that there wasn't kind of an opportunity for a mental health intervention is one thing that was mentioned, like not a really recent interaction with law enforcement that maybe would have led to a diversion. It seems to me also like what you're saying is that family violence also offers a way for that interaction to happen as well with law enforcement. Like, would there have been touch points with the system this far out of a family violence conviction that could have provided that diversion opportunity instead?
It's typically a case by case basis. Certainly, if the perpetrator had still been on probation or under some sort of other community supervision, there would have been touch points along the way. I think what's most important to remember here, as far as touch points, if the perpetrator had still been on probation or parole, there would have been those multiple touch points to possibly intervene on a mental health crisis or prevent a mental health crisis by ensuring they have proper treatment supports. I think that the pivotal touch point that was missed here was ensuring and making sure we have systems in place to connect the law and the penal code and the firearms prohibition to the day-to-day life of the perpetrator and the victim to ensure perpetrators don't have access to firearms moving forward. And again, the situation that is the most difficult to control for is whenever they're obtaining a firearm from a friend or family member or acquaintance, whatever the case may be. I think that comes down to making sure there is public information and public engagement and connecting the pieces between a person who is at a risk to an intimate partner and the very real public safety risk. Whenever we look at intimate partner violence and intimate partner violence homicide, we see year after year in our Honoring Texas Victims report, people who are killed and injured peripheral to the intended victim, children, law enforcement officers, bystanders. So it's not just a safety measure to protect the victim, it is an overall safety measure for the community.
Is domestic violence a potential precursor for more public violence?
So there are several cases at minimum where it's been shown that the perpetrator of mass violence, particularly shootings, does have a history of domestic violence, whether it be in physical violence and convictions for that, or in stalking former partners and exercising that coercive control dynamic. Thankfully, the academic world is starting to put more of a microscope on that phenomenon, and we're learning more about it so that we can see where the parallels are or the intersections are and use that, leverage that knowledge to be able to make the community safer.
Great. Thank you. I'm very curious about this Senate Bill 1362 that got passed in the legislature this year and bans the recognition or enforcement of red flag orders. Can you please fill me in on how red flag orders apply to domestic violence perpetrators who have been convicted in domestic violence cases, and how the Texas Council on Family Violence kind of saw this bill and felt about it?
Well, I think it's important to keep our focus where it is most helpful. There are a lot of unknowns in this case, certainly, based upon how other states have utilized extreme risk protective orders, red flag orders. It's not even clear that this perpetrator would have qualified for that. It's a hypothetical at this point. What we do know for a fact is that there are state and federal laws prohibiting him from having a weapon because of his violent history and his conviction of family violence. We know that this was a preventable homicide. Those are facts. They're not hypotheticals. So by focusing on what we have and making better of what we have and putting forth and implementing policies that are going to robustly and effectively address the issue of offenders repeatedly being in possession of firearms illegally and using them to do harm, I think that's a more important piece than speculating on how a bill did or didn't or could or couldn't have impacted this case had it gone differently.
So the failure, it sounds like, in your perspective, is something that was already in place, is the fact that there was this ban because he had been convicted of a family violence incident in the past. That should have been enough to prevent him from having a firearm.
Absolutely. And, if he was going to purposefully obtain a firearm that he knew he wasn't supposed to have, I don't think it would have mattered whether that was under the prohibited possessor law or the red flag law.
Right. And the truth is, regardless of any kind of ban like that, I mean, this is Texas, and it is relatively easy to get a weapon.
It is very easy to get a weapon in Texas. And there are certainly loopholes, risks, things that are present in Texas that may not be in other states. But across the board, having systems and having mechanisms with which to enforce the laws that we already have, that I don't think that that's necessarily impacted by the ease of getting a weapon. If everyone knows and understands the importance of ensuring prohibited possessors don't have a weapon. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, it's possible that maybe there wasn't that understanding in this case, since he was able to get a gun from someone he knew.
Absolutely. And of course, you never want to put onto a family the wrongdoings of a family member. But I do think that there is a major societal disconnect when it comes to understanding the way that family violence and perpetrators of family violence pose a very real risk of harm to the general public. It's like we were talking about earlier with the Honoring Texas Victims report and the number of people who are killed as a result of having proximity to the victim whenever this offender, whomever it might have been, decided to take a life. And I think it's vital that we acknowledge that and that we stop making it a relational issue and look at it as a community-wide risk. And that's not just me saying that. In the Rahimi decision that was decided, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years ago by the Supreme Court, they also acknowledged the risk that people who have been convicted of domestic violence are to the rest of their communities. It's not controversial, but it's not something that's being talked about enough.
Mm-hmm. Even though it's still very much, we haven't solved this problem by any means.
Not at all. And I think that we tend to, at some level, view it still as a behind closed doors thing. Well, it is until it isn't. And whenever it isn't, that's whenever you have things happen like occurred in this case.
Yeah. Well, that's super helpful context. And I can't thank you enough for your time. Tabitha, is there anything else that you want to add that I didn't ask about that you think is relevant to this conversation?
Just that our hearts are with the family of those who were lost. And we hope that someday to be able to make it a safer Texas, and hope that everybody has a good and safe day.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to the Texas Council on Family Violence and APD's latest on this shooting in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city.